Hey, it's Ben. Welcome to Oasis, Nuevas, Fuerzas. It's good to see you again. Today, I have an interview with Tom Roy from Shepherd's Coach Network. Tom will share with us his heart for pastors, Christian coaches, and Christian leaders. So stick around. I think you'll enjoy it. Tom, tell us a little bit about Shepherd's Coach Network.
Well, okay, Ben, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to have some time with you. Even though it's like this, I enjoy when we hang out. But about a year and a half ago, a little longer than that now, I retired from UPI, Unlimited Potential, a ministry that God started through me about 40 years ago. And I got to be 70 and set out of here and started Shepherd Coach Network. So for a number of years, I was ministering to professional baseball players. And God put it on my heart to turn that a little bit to leaders, primarily, first of all, Christian leaders, and primarily coaches. And I wrote a couple books. One's called Shepherd Coach and the other's called Flock. Well, the first book, Shepherd Coach, I wrote two coaches. It was a strategic plan. It was a workbook. And I had a missionary, a lifetime missionary, read it, get in touch with me. He's now 88 years old. And he said, every pastor should read this book because in Ephesians, the word there for pastor is really coach, that's what you're doing. And so although I didn't rewrite the book, it led me to say, you know what, I have a heart for pastors too, much like you do. And so then COVID hit. So I've sold books, but I haven't done any speaking. But my heart is for Christian leaders, first of all, the coaches to say, okay, you say you're a Christian. How does that translate into your coaching? And for the pastors to say, you need a safe place where you can talk to me. Obviously, with UPI traveling to 68 countries, I've worked with missionaries and pastors all my life. And I know it's a unique breed. And you have a tremendous service for them there. So I appreciate you letting me share all of that. Both those books are on Amazon, by the way. I could have been thrown one up here, but I didn't do that to you because I can't find one. All right.
I'll include a link in the description box below.
Oh, you're the best.
Well, and that's the thing. I've thought for a long time that a lot of Christians, especially in the nonprofit sector, missionaries, they feel like they're in competition for market share or whatever. I mean, they wouldn't view it like that. They wouldn't word it like that at all. But there's this idea of competition within Christianity. My heart has been for pastors, missionaries, and Christian leaders, but it's also for people to be working together in those three departments. Pastors in towns to be working together, people that are doing the same type of missions to be working together. And that's why I wanted to get you on here, was because I feel like we're in the same thing. We're both trying to take care of those who have been called to full-time service. We're trying to have them be able to do exactly what the Lord has wanted them to do for a long period of time, not to burn out early or anything like that.
Right. And we see a lot of burnout. I've probably had some burnout where you take it on yourself rather than the Holy Spirit and you start running because you have to. You got to keep up. And unfortunately, a lot of the times the competition is about dollars, not about theology, even though it can be that too. But it's like, don't you dare shear my sheep. I'm their shepherd kind of feeling. And we're both in the same camp there, Ben, is that, man, they're his sheep. Let's just take care of them.
And you went over a little bit about your heart for this, but what do you see as the need?
Well, I'll just share with it locally here, and then you can multiply this times a million probably. But there have been a couple of Christian leaders, pastors, and that have asked me to be elder or on their board. And I said no. And at first I had the excuse I travel all the time, but as I prayed about it, the bigger excuse is I want you to be able to trust me, not to be your authority, but to be that person that really cares for you. Like just now, before we met here, I had 3 cups of coffee in me. So I was meeting with a non-for-profit guy, and just to hear his heart, to be able to say, it's okay, man. I'm a third eye, if you will. I'm a safe place. You don't have to take what I'm telling you. The same with elder. I've been on elder boards and deacon boards, but to be able to speak truth to power and not have them feel like, oh no, it's going to go all over the place. But not only speak truth to power, but to listen. And it's more of that, is to say, okay, I want to be a safe place, because if you share this with someone else, you have a chance to lose a lot. And so
Yes.
that's kind of my heart behind it.
What exactly does it look like when somebody contacts your organization? What would be your ideal situation with that? Would you go stay with them? What would the retreat or anything like that look like?
Initially, it was coming to speak to Christian colleges and to their coaches. And again, that was shut down immediately. I had a wonderful opportunity. I was the keynote speaker at the National Christian College Athletic Association yearly meeting, and there were about 100 schools represented there. And the Holy Spirit really worked. And I thought,
Hmm.
wow, I sold a lot of books, 100 and some books. For me, that's a lot of books, and everything was rolling. And then I had my first assignment before COVID hit, and I was asked to come into one college. I met with all 21 or 22 of their coaches. They gave me half a day, and I shared with them this idea of what a shepherd coach looks like.
Hmm.
So that was the first thing I did, other than speaking at banquets and those kinds of things. A second area would be a mentorship program where I would meet with them for a number of times and just be there to not only listen, but to give them some ideas. And this, now we're talking about literal coaches, right?
Sure.
But I'm also open to do that with pastors if they want that kind of a relationship, if you will. And then the other things that I'm available for are teaching and speaking at retreats. I just want to get close to leaders, and if they allow me, their sheep, to talk about what it looks like not to just talk a good game, not to just pray before an event, not to just do a service like I've done for 35 years the same way, but to say, how can you be incarnational? How can you be real? How can you be open and honest with
Hmm.
your sheep about your faith, not just about what you're teaching or about whatever, and to intersect. Now, you know me a little bit, Ben. I've been told one of my spiritual gifts is evangelism. So I love going out there with a coach that maybe is a new believer or not even a believer yet, but thinks they are,
Hmm.
and kind of, hopefully lead them into a deeper relationship with Christ. But then with the pastors, and again, I've done it locally, but that's been my stage because of COVID since
Hmm.
Shepherd Coach came out, is to just be there for them. I spoke also before COVID to the local pastors. It's kind of a ministerium, but it's not. It's at the YMCA, and was
Hmm.
very honest with them about what this could look like. Had some good feedback again, but God's timing was get back. You're in the bullpen still. Stay out there, and I'll call you when you're supposed to throw. And so the last part of this is I'm available for almost anything like that, but I've really, really turned it over. It's very tempting, and I do it. I go to Amazon. How many books have I sold? How many?
Sure.
No, no, no. I'm not going to land the plane there. I still do it because it's kind of interesting. But I've turned this whole thing over to Jesus. If it's supposed to work, it'll work. If not, I'll be 71 here in a month or so. I don't have to work, right? But I don't see it as work. I
Yes,
see this.
absolutely.
And can I share one other thing, man?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if if there are people listening to this who are thinking about retirement, you got to have purpose. I don't care if you leave a job. I talked earlier about, I retired from UPI, but I didn't retire from my purpose. And I have a number of people that I know that thought retirement was I don't have to work now and I'm just going to play golf or I'm going to whatever. And like a famous personality, Brett Favre, he retired 3 times because he couldn't handle fishing and hunting all the time. He had to get back to a passion. Well, for us as believers, it's a calling. And that's why I share what I do, Ben. It's God for 38 years called me to a specific group of sheep.
Mm.
Right now, I'm looking at pastors, coaches, leaders to just say, can we talk?
I see what you're doing as a great calling and a great thing for Jesus, but also, God willing, it keeps you healthy for a lot of years to come, right?
Yeah, I hope that, because I think that's why we, not just me, were put here. If upon salvation we were given spiritual gifts and
Mm.
then opportunity, let's exercise them. You know, we did jobs to make money so we could have a place to live and eat and occasionally go on vacation, you know, but purpose is way, way greater. And so the big thing for me was to relinquish that back to Christ, to just say, if you don't want me to be involved, that's fine. And then COVID hit, so maybe that's his answer. I don't know. But I'm
Yeah.
writing books anyway, and trying to stay involved on social media and such. Purpose, man, that's the key.
Pivoting over a little bit, one of the things that we're really passionate about is keeping people from burnout. Okay. And so I read the other day that 91% of pastors, this was at soulshepherd.org, they had interviewed 1,050 pastors, and 91% of the people that they interviewed said that at some point during their career, they had experienced mild to major burnout, and 18% of them that very second described themselves as burnt to a crisp. And, I hear that and I think, man, how can we be part of keeping these people that God has called to full-time Christian service? How can we be part of keeping them away from that word burnout? If a pastor contacted you and said, hey, look, I'm burnt out, what would it look like going on from there through your ministry?
Well, that's a really, really good question. I think there are a couple of layers to this one. First of all, we all know as believers, or we should, that we signed up for this, meaning that we're countercultural, that the world, first of all, is not going to love us, right?
Yeah.
And so, although we forget that sometimes because we want to be evangelistic and be a part of, there's going to be that, I tell people we wear the gray uniforms. And in baseball, that means we're the visitors. And they may applaud something nice when you hit a home run if they win the game. But for the most part, they're not there for you. They're there for the other guy. And so that would be one dynamic of this. But I think the second one that probably is more so with the pastor types that I deal with is wanting to please everybody. So they end up doing it, and or control, that they don't want to relinquish control because it may not be perfect if someone else does it. And my thinking on that was, yes, you're right, as long as we don't lose $1 million or something crazy, but that person needs to learn how to do it by doing it. And so those are two major things for guys that are, in particular guys, I work with guys because of obviously you don't want to work one-on-one with other women. That doesn't mean you can't minister to them, but there are different ways. And that's another issue. Some guys get caught up in that because they want to control, and so they turn to porn or whatever. But the control issue and the wanting to be liked is kind of with most pastors that, again, I haven't had to do it, but if I ever get to, those would be two of the areas, as well as the first one, that sometimes we lose context. That man, when we signed up, it wasn't just to say, hey, I'm a speaker or I know the word of God. We put a special forces uniform on, and the evil one is not happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And would it look like if that person did contact you, would you be meeting with them on a regular basis? Would you go and be around them if you needed to? Like, what does that look like in an ideal situation?
Ideal is it's local and I don't have to get on a plane or whatever. But yes, I would go out there and probably initially do an interview over the phone or like this on Zoom initially, but I would want to be boots on the ground for 3 days. They would have to pay for that. I'm not a non-for-profit. That's what I was, but I'm not that anymore. To really not only hear their words, but see their environment, be able to talk to their spouse if they're married, to get a sense of the congregation if it's a pastor, the type of leadership, the type of issues, and to kind of examine where the person's head is at in terms of their thinking patterns. Once I have that down after the first 2 or 3 days, we could do a lot of it this way, especially if it's long distance, because you don't want to pay $1,000 plane ticket to fly to wherever if you don't have to. But I think initially there has to be that to show, not only for me to see where they are, but for them to know who I am, to build trust. So that they know my flaws, that they know that I'm a human being also. I am not the Messiah. Messiahs usually get crucified within 3 years, and that's what I tell pastors who come in and think they're the Messiah, and that's what's called extreme burnout, right? If you go in there thinking you are the man, and the same with me when I come in, I want them to see that, I'm on the edge at times and I'm a real person, and hey, this is who I am. So that's kind of an overview of what it would look like and what I would be trying to find out, and hopefully explaining and showing them this is who I am.
Is there something you wish the general public understood about this type of ministry?
Yeah, I think it's well needed. I remember going to a board meeting. I was there to speak at a church, and they had a pastor that left. And I was staying with one of the elders, and he said, "I'd like you to come to our board meeting tonight because it's a congregational meeting. We're asking, what do you want in a pastor?" And he brought in a blackboard and a piece of chalk, okay, low tech. He said to the congregation, "Okay, start telling me." He filled the front end of the blackboard. He flipped it over. There was a second side to the blackboard, filled that, and brought in a second blackboard. And when it was all done, it was very powerful. He said, "So who is this? Who the heck are we going to get that can do all of this?" And I think to the public, I'd like to say that your expectation is different than the next person, than the next person. Well, the pastor should visit everybody. Well, the pastor should have a perfect sermon. Well, the pastor should be nice all the time. It's kind of like, when I was a high school teacher, the teacher has to be in a good mood every day. The kids, they can do what they want. And so to the general public, I would say your expectations sometimes are too high. That particular visit really exposed that to me because I was naive, and I think a lot of the people think, well, this guy just shows up and preaches on Sunday, and if he has a staff, he does a whole thing. They don't understand the emotion of doing a funeral, the preparation of doing a wedding, the understanding of being in public, the the bullseye on him that says this guy better be perfect or else. And so that's what I would say to the people in a place like you have. Unfortunately, many of them that you're probably getting are in burnout, but hopefully some of them are just coming for some perspective, and that is needed too. And I would say to churches that don't take for granted that your pastor's doing well because he's smiling. A lot of pastors are extroverts anyway, and they get energy from being out there. But what happens is we think that they're invincible, and as a result, we don't minister to them. We think, well, they're there for me. And I think that that's a great service that you offer, is to say, no, we care about you. You're feeding sheep all the time. And where are you getting fed, or where are you getting hugged, or where are you coming that you can say, no, this is all about you? Because as leaders, Christian leaders, we've been taught, and rightfully so, that we're to serve, right? Well, you know what? It's a two-way street. And I think you guys offer that to these men and women that come to your place. And I'm sure if you could record, hopefully you don't, but if you could record their first night there, they're just like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And I know your personality, you and your bride and your family, I'm sure it's a blessing to these men and women that come there.
Is there anything that you would like to add to this conversation? Maybe something I didn't ask. This is just your podium. Say whatever you want to say.
Well, I didn't have anything planned here. So now that you're asking me, I'll just say this, that the people watching this, the Balkies, he did not ask me to say this, have a special calling, and they do care about pastors. But somebody needs to care for them too. And sometimes I think we think, well, we support them, and that's awesome. And my wife and I support them. But there are different ways of support. Yes, they need the finances, but especially if there are any of you watching in Costa Rica, embrace them. The churches that support them, embrace them. I'm sure your pastor understands, but many of you don't, what they're going through. So just like I mentioned, they are giving a place of comfort for pastors. We need to be the comfort to them because they're right there. So think about it. When these pastors show up, they're offering the place to relax to them and taking care of them. There may be a couple of you out there that need to understand that yeah, this is what they do. but it can be wearing on them also. So please continue to support, but also support by encouragement and by not allowing this dude here to get burned out. Did I point the right way? There, I think that's the right way.
Actually, the first way was right. I appreciate that, Tom. I appreciate that.
I don't know which way on mine it's showing the opposite, but that guy in the blue and his bride and his family, that's the other thing. You know, when I work with Major League Baseball players, people always ask, what the heck? Well, there'd be two things. First of all, with the player, I look for the little boy in his eye because now I can get to his heart.
Mm.
But secondly was his family. And there were many years where these kids knew me as Uncle Doggy because I would bark at them. And now they still call me that. They're 20, 30, 40 years old. Hey, Uncle Doggy. You know how much that blesses Ben and Krista if you care about their kids? That would be the other thing I would say, is to think of ways to bless their children, because that'll bless them.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. How can folks get in touch with you?
Send me money, no tax receipt. No. Oh, you said get in touch with me, not encourage me. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm messing with you. Troy, Troy, at upi.org. I still use that email because that's the one that's been out there for 40 years and they let me do it. Or I'm on almost every social media. In fact, I'll just tell you, Ben, you probably know this, but I changed my format from being serious all the time. I send out 2 or 3 jokes every day.
Yes.
And instead of getting 1 like, I get 100. So I too want to be liked. But it's opened up a lot of opportunity for me, because then occasionally I'll throw a verse in or whatever on Facebook, on Instagram, on, I don't know, there's about 5 of them that I'm out there on. And then I'm able to share my materials. I have a new leadership course. It's called Shepherd Coach Leadership Lab. And I've interviewed 20 leaders from around the country. Some of them, like a guy named Clint Hurdle, former major league manager, Chris Singleton, who's on ESPN, business executives, full-time faith workers, about what does it look like to be a Christian leader. I'm pretty excited about that. If you want info on that, all of that stuff, if you don't want to email me, is on shepherdcoachnetwork.com, the website. So you could look it up there.
Thank you for spending some time with us today. We upload a new video every Saturday. If this video encouraged you, please leave a like. If you know anyone who would be able to benefit from seeing this video, please share it with them. And as always, have a wonderful day.